Hi, the topic of today's video is book reviews of your work, and the question is whether you should care. So when I first published my book back in June, of course I wanted people to read it. I still do. My debut novel, The Devil in the Blue. But of course, when you're publishing your books, you need readers, and in order to give credibility to your work, you need reviews. So for my part, I have never really cared what people think, within reason. Obviously when you're at work or doing something for someone else, clearly they're the customer, their opinion matters. But when you're writing your own work or you're an artist, I think artists need to work from a position of independence and not necessarily working for some particular segment of the market or for a particular person. Now, you might be writing for a particular reader. So for myself, I would say I was probably more writing for my wife than anyone else. She was my first reader in that sense. So I cared what she thought. And also, I think we have similar taste, and she's intelligent and she's read a lot of books. So I'm like, well, I'm going to try to write my book where at least she would like it. If I could do that, then I feel like I met the basic hurdle or standard I was shooting for. But beyond that, I never really cared what anyone thought, even including editors. Now, again, as I mentioned in other videos, if there was an editorial comment in terms of maybe a style question or maybe a certain wording thing, I would of course be flexible. When it came down to my opinions and my ideas, they were mine, and I wouldn't change those. So, having said that, however, writing a book is you do have to have readers, and you need reviews. So I have done the basic. I'm on Amazon, and I have 5 reviews, and I learned something about reviews. So I had gone on to Goodreads, and I had done some reading of some reviews, mainly out of curiosity, and I had read some reviews on Cormac McCarthy, and there was a few reviews, one in particular where it was actually a brilliant review, and I think it was of Suttree, but the comments it was very thoughtful, and actually I laughed out loud. It was making fun of the list of similes that Cormac McCarthy used in the book, and the review listed, I think it was at least a dozen, and it made me laugh out loud because it highlighted, I think, a fault when they almost try too hard. And I think Cormac McCarthy, who was one of my favorite authors, could try too hard, and this person's review was outrageously funny. And when I read this review, I said to my wife, "Oh, maybe I would love to have." No one wants a negative comment. You want your work to be admired and people to like it. But I did tell my wife, and at the time, I was sincere. And I told her, gosh, I would love to have someone take the time to read my work and actually spend, in this review, in my opinion, had to take 45 minutes to an hour to write, maybe more. And I'm like, I could live with that. If someone read my work and skewered me like that, I think I actually could accept it, because I'm like, that means they took the time. But then when I started having some reviews came in my book, I did have a moment or two where I was like, do I want a bad review? But for the most part, my reviews, the few I have, are good. But I want to point out 2 reviews in particular. So I had one a couple weeks ago, and you can see this online on Amazon. And this person, I think I don't have his name at the top of my head, but you can see it in there. It was a very long, thoughtful review. And he has some really fair points, actually. I think he gave me, it was, I think, a 4 out of 5. And he has some very fair comments. And one of his insightful comments was about how I addressed POV for some scenes. And I have to say, it was actually, he made some good points, and it made me reflect on whether I should have done something differently or I could have. And I actually believe that it was something I definitely would think about when I'm writing the second book of the series, which I'm working on now. And then I received another review, and this one's only available, at least right now, on Goodreads. And it was a 3 out of 5, and it was a much shorter review. It kind of just generally, I'm not going to read it out loud here, but it generally said that it was a slow read, and they had trouble finishing the book. Although gratifyingly, they did finish, which was nice. And it just wasn't there. It was just okay for them. I think that was the quote. The book was just okay. I read that review this morning, and I reflected on it quite a bit. There wasn't a lot there to take away. It wasn't nearly as constructive as the review I was just talking about, where it was like a half a page long review. It was very insightful and very helpful. And then I have some other reviews, some fives that are actually very complimentary, and they're very nice. And they actually, interestingly, are the opposite of the 3 review. The other reviews are that the readers found the book engaging and quite a fast read, almost the opposite of the 3 out of 5. And when I reflected on this morning, which is why I'm doing this video, is it got me thinking, I'm glad in a way. No one wants to see a negative review. And to be fair, the 3 out of 5 wasn't really negative. It wasn't really positive, but actually I think it was fair, because everyone has their opinions and everyone's entitled to those. And I want to say, certainly from my part, there's many books that I don't, either I haven't finished. That's very few. I usually finish books I read that I start, but there's many books that I would give a 1 or 2 that some people consider classics. For example, I just finished a few months ago, I guess, Remains of the Day, which is this giant book of literature. I didn't actually get that opinion. I probably would have given it 3, maybe even a 2. I found it sort of contrived and cliched, and I didn't find that insightful, considering how great it was. So that's just an example where people are entitled to their opinions. And I go online and I look at reviews of other books like Cormac McCarthy, and he gets lots of negatives because of his structure and lack of punctuation and lack of attribution for speakers. And I don't really mind that very much in his books. I kind of like it, but some people don't, and they downgrade him because of that. So the bigger takeaway here is differing opinions, of course, are healthy. If everyone agreed, I don't think you'd ever make progress. If everyone always said the same thing and agreed, I think you'd stand still. So my point here is, for me, I was questioning how I would take a negative opinion. And actually, I thought it was okay. And I actually now welcome them. I mean, certainly no one wants 1s and 2s. But if you're going to get a negative review, or not a positive one, you hope you get some detailed commentary and some helpful takeaways. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. It's a short video, but I wanted to get out there and just explain my take on reviews on your work as an artist. Thank you.